The business of culture, the culture of business, policy, media and technology, entrepreneurs, investors, creatives, much more. Full disclosure, I'm Robin Farzad.
To see this young generation kind of go and open lots of brokerage accounts is a good thing. They should get their foot on the ladder in terms of the stock market, but not if it's going to be this, because I think a lot of them are going to sort of become bitter about it and think that they got cheated.
Revenge of the small investor? One of the more curious financial headlines from the pandemic era. How little guys with their smallish buy orders for GameStop, AMC, BlackBerry, and other left-for-dead stocks managed to terrorize hedge funds. But is the system still rigged? YOLO, FOMO are powerful animal spirits in the moment. But is this new class of investors also picking up long-term lessons? Stay with us. This episode is made possible by the support of Salomon & Ludwin, a boutique wealth management firm dedicated to helping families make smart financial decisions. You worked hard and sacrificed to create and build wealth. They treat advice given to you with the respect your journey deserves. For over 30 years, Salomon & Ludwin has earned a reputation of trust and confidence, recognized by Barron's as a Hall of Fame advisor. More at salomonludwin.com. Full Disclosure Podcast to NPR One, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts at link fulldradio.com. Follow on Twitter and Facebook at FullDRadio. Joining me is Spencer Jakab, who manages and edits the Wall Street Journal's Heard on the Street column with writers based all over the globe. You've seen bylines New York, London, Hong Kong, San Francisco, and Sydney. Sometimes his own byline, the book, which is about to drop, is The Revolution That Wasn't, GameStop, Reddit, and the Fleecing of Retail Investors. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Well, I have to say, I'm so excited to, you have a sell side past. I worked on Wall Street for a little stretch. I know that sometimes we can't resist the urge to kind of dive into jargony territory and talk about prints and, paper and YOLO and this stuff and that stuff. But we are doing this for a public radio audience. And I'm so fascinated because there's so much surreal stuff going on. But step back for a minute. If you compare what happened recently with this retail investor boom and the GameStop, MemeStop, Reddit, AMC shares and everything, or people are in lockdown at home, I was under the impression that since the turn of the century and the dot-com collapse, bust, that the retail investor was gone. That this has kind of become a game of, just be the market, don't beat the market anymore.
Well, it's interesting you say that because that was the trend. And there was an analyst who wrote a report. And it's kind of hard to believe that he took himself seriously, where he kind of compared the rise of index funds to kind of people kind of putting themselves in slavery. I mean, Wall Street was really, really worried. So Wall Street was doing well. Obviously, we've had a long bull market, except for the scary dip during the pandemic. And Wall Street was doing well, but it could have been doing better because the lucrative business of giving people advice, of managing their money, was starting to fade away as people were wising up. And then starting in late 2019 and then really kind of supercharged by the pandemic, you had this wave of young people coming in to the stock market, buying individual stocks, where you went from maybe 10% of activity being individuals to above 30% at one point during the tale that I tell, which is a very big difference in the span of less than 2 years. So the retail investor is back. It's not totally positive, as I say. I mean, I think it's good that young people are getting involved in the stock market. That's the way you build wealth. Unless you're going to start a business yourself or buy houses or do whatever, you gotta build a nest egg through multiplication.
But here's
right?
what you covered and what we were told, that the millennials were walloped coming out of 2008 and 2009. They were really embittered. They were broke, and all these tweets about them blowing money on avocado toast and you should save for a house, and their enmity, their disdain for okay boomers and everything. Where did the money come from for them to suddenly start romancing concepts like Tesla or GameStop or going on Reddit and saying, yeah, I want to blow 1,000 or 2,000 here and there?
Well, so here's the thing. So 20 million people with a little bit of money is just like a couple of million people with a lot of money, basically. And you had a lot of young people coming to the market all at once, and they didn't have a lot of money, but they had a lot of impact. So Robinhood, which is the preferred broker, basically, of the young YOLO investor, their median account had
Wait, first demystify YOLO for us so everybody understands.
Okay, sorry.
There's FOMO and YOLO.
Okay, sorry. You only live once. So that's the
You only
sort of,
live once.
Yeah, exactly. You only live once, but you can go broke many times. But you only live once. And that was sort of the rallying cry of some of the wilder subset of these investors, right? Robinhood's customers had very little money in their accounts on average.
Sure.
But they did a lot with it. They trade very actively. Many of them can trade and do trade stock options, which have it's like weapons of mass destruction of the stock market. Basically, you can do a lot of damage to yourself and possibly others. And so their impact was felt way beyond the size of their accounts. And there were lots of them. The story that I tell, GameStop was the most traded security on earth for several days. You had multi-billion-dollar holes blown in some of the leading hedge funds on Wall Street. So they
Stop
definitely
and ponder
packed a
this
punch.
for a minute. GameStop, which was widely derided as the next blockbuster, it was roadkill in a time of digital. I mean, yes, we all knew that. I remember my brother would go there and buy actual video games and everything. You talk about the experience with your children. It was fait accompli that this stock was going to head to zero or be recapitalized somehow. But at a very pivotal moment at the beginning of 2021, when we're still kind of in COVID, you suddenly see its market capitalization surge, backed by these battalions of retail investors.
Yeah, and the stocks that surged, because it was the leading meme stock. It was the OG meme stock. But what do the meme stocks have in common? I'll just give you a list of them. I mean, these are companies that maybe around 2001 would have been hot, but not 2021, right? I mean, BlackBerry, Nokia, Bed Bath & Beyond. There was Koss, which makes wired stereo headphones, stuff like that.
Oh my gosh.
What they all had in common was that they were losers. They were kind of reckoned to be down for the count. Because people on Wall Street and they're not all exclusively selling stock short, but people on Wall Street who sell stock short, which means that you bet that they will decline. You borrow them from somebody else and you sell them, betting that their price will decline and then you can buy it back later. They had been steamrollered in betting against companies like Tesla and stuff like that. Everything that was kind of hot and new and shiny in 2020. But even betting against things like cruise lines and airlines, things that really got should have gotten killed during the pandemic, they came roaring back. And 2020 was a terrible year for them. So the one part of the market where they could feel pretty safe were these companies that no one was going to bid up, right? I mean, GameStop, come on. I mean, it was like Blockbuster 3 years before Blockbuster went bankrupt because of Netflix. I've got 3 sons, and my oldest boy's about to turn 23. And gosh, since he was about 4 years old, we have been visiting Blockbuster, and we don't visit it very much anymore. It's not just because of the pandemic. It's just because games.
Well, you're talking about GameStop.
Yeah, GameStop, exactly.
Yeah, you said Blockbuster, which
I'm sorry. Okay,
conflate the two.
Freudian slip.
Conflate the
we don't
two.
go to Blockbuster anymore either. There's one left in Oregon, apparently.
I think there's one left in the country. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
I compare it to the Air Supply song. I was asked to do a TV hit, and to my mind, this is like making love out of nothing at all, right? If the fundamentals aren't there, if the business is declining, if there are no cash flows, especially in a pandemic, and digital has already disrupted it, the rents have accrued elsewhere. Brick and mortar has had a horrific time compared to Amazon and everything else. But if a battalion of nostalgists, let's just call them nostalgists, come in and say, no, that's a part of my childhood, darn it, and these evil hedge fund short sellers are out there trying to annihilate this cornerstone of my childhood. What's amazing to me in reading your book is that this group recognized on the Reddit forums that there is an Achilles heel to the big Goliath traders, is that unlike buying a stock where the worst that can happen to you can go to zero, if you short sell a stock, say you short it at $5, you could lose an unlimited amount of money. If it goes up to 10, if it goes up to 15, you have to say, gosh, I'm really losing money. Do I buy it back to cover my rear, if you will? And if everybody buys it back at the same time, you get something called a short squeeze, and then that bludgeons all of these investors and these nostalgists, if you want to call them that, on Reddit and on Robinhood are saying like, yeah, David just beat Goliath.
Totally, exactly. I mean, it's like a theater with one narrow little door, and then like you just sort of sprayed kerosene all over and threw a bunch of bombs into it. These short sellers, because they do it to themselves. They trample one another because the short sellers are the ones who have to buy. So in addition to all these young people, mainly young people, buying the stock and buying options on the stock, which had a kind of a multiplier effect. It's a bit technical, but that also sparked a lot of stock buying. The lot of the buying was just done by these funds who had borrowed the stock and would default if they didn't pay it back, and they were bleeding, red ink, and they had to buy. And doing this is, let's just put it in context. I mean, could you always do this? I mean, no, because it was very rare, like for so many shares of a company to be sold short, that more shares were sold short than were available for purchase. It isn't illegal, as a lot of people assert. I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories about it. It's not illegal. It's a process called rehypothecation. But at the peak, GameStop, about 140% of the available shares were sold short, which meant that there was just no way, if something crazy happened, to
so it was really the
back.
province of these short sellers, these hedge funds that were betting that it was going to go to zero.
It was them betting it was going to go to zero, and they felt pretty safe with a company. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Okay, GameStop, it takes two to make a market. You always can be wrong, right? So GameStop, I think at its lowest got down to like $2.17 in 2020, like when the pandemic was really bad. It was like scuffling around $3, $4 a share. It got up to $483 a share.
Blows the mind, and the terror that these you illustrate these players like Plotkin, the hedge fund manager in this group, these people who are masters of the universe, who take in hundreds of millions of dollars a year, who manage tens of billions of dollars. I want to quote from your book: secretly setting up a stock market corner in which you squeeze a short seller dry by snapping up all the available shares was the sort of thing that happened all the time in 1921, but not in 2021. It has long been illegal. But what if, instead of a few rich people doing it behind closed doors, a few million strangers with small accounts did it in full public view? Even if regulators cried foul, what on earth were they going to do about it? That's kind of the irresistible drama that I can't get over in this, that you have, the small vote. It's like Bernie Sanders with his send in $23 contributions versus the big dark money, the big PACs that are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on campaigns.
Totally. I mean, and it's the thing is that, let's say you and I each had a hedge fund, and then we know some third guy who has a hedge fund who's sold a stock short. You just can't do that. You're not allowed to collude. But I mean, is there really a rule about this? There isn't. But I don't think that this will happen again. And the proponents, the sort of the people who were active in this, have tried again and again to make it happen, to make sort of the magic recreate itself. And it's kind of sad because, I mean, they've made stocks go up. In the meantime, there are other meme stocks have emerged. It's a very much a live thing, but they spend a lot of money doing it. People can see them now. People can see them. They know what they're doing. They know the shtick. And they're each month, tens of billions of dollars of these investors' money kind of goes poof because they're sort of throwing it against a wall, trying to get stocks to move and trying to make things happen. But they're not really making, or, some of them do, but most of them don't make any money themselves. They kind of spend a lot of money doing it. So it's turned into a real nihilistic, weird thing after this moment of triumph. And the other weird thing is that, what was their goal? Their goal was, I mean, some people wanted to get rich. Some people wanted to kind of stick it to the man. Some people wanted to do a bit of both, kind of a twofer during this episode. But they kind of didn't really. I mean, if you want to stick it to Wall Street, and I get that the young generation really resents Wall Street and resents the sort of whole sense that there's two sets of rules and yada, yada. But they enriched large parts of Wall Street. That's the crazy thing. And a lot of rich people got a lot richer off of this and continue to get richer off of this, these young people kind of trying to stick it to the man. And not that many of the young people made money either. So it not only was not a twofer, they kind of mostly shot themselves in the foot, which they don't want to hear, but that kind of is it. So, that's why I became a financial journalist. I like to, enlighten people and to help people. And I'm interested in personal finance, and, to see this young generation kind of go and open lots of brokerage accounts is a good thing. They should get their foot on the ladder in terms of the stock market, but not if it's not if it's going to be this, because I think a lot of them are going to sort of become bitter about it and think that that they got cheated, and the way that this story kind of ends, or the period that I describe ends, they kind of had a real legitimate reason for feeling cheated.
Full disclosure, stay with us. Full disclosure, I'm Robin Farzad. You're listening to Spencer Jakab. He is the author of The Revolution That Wasn't, GameStop, Reddit, and the Fleecing of Retail Investors. He manages and edits the Wall Street Journal's Heard on the Street column. If you could please explain mechanically how Robinhood works, the idea works. Time was that they call it friction in trading would prevent excessive trading. If you have to pay, in the 1970s, $100 commission to get out of a stock, it would be the barrier, the contraceptive for a person, a punter with $300-400 to go in and buy a few shares of something if you had to pay a fat commission. But over time, that fell to $50, to $20, $9.95, and then poof, 3 years ago, which you covered so well, the commissions disappeared outright, and these firms realized they needed to make money elsewhere. How is Robinhood making money with commission-free trading?
So it was not the first broker, but it was the first really successful broker to introduce zero commissions. And a couple of clever guys, Bejubat and Vlad Tenev, got together. One was a grad student, one had recently been a student. They'd met at Stanford University, and they started a company to help hedge funds. They were helping hedge funds trade. And they said, hey, you know what? This trading cost almost nothing. Don't you think that we could do this for people? That we could help people, trade for nothing, basically, and then maybe we could design an app that made it very alluring. And so, so they started this business. Now, I spoke to one of their investors who said, the early investors who kind of met them when they were, they hadn't even launched it yet, and saw the app and said, this app is really good. You guys could charge like $1 or $2. This is when most people were charging $6 or $7, and they said, no, we want to charge $0, and it's possible to do. Because of the way that markets work today, which is that you don't have to send an order to a stock exchange. There are about 14 or 15 actual stock exchanges in the US, not just one, as many people believe. And they're really just big banks of computers these days. But they're stock exchanges where the prices are there and you can see the bid and the offer on all these stocks. But in addition to that, there are a bunch of companies that will make a market in the dark, basically, where they'll take your order and they'll say, okay, we see this price on the stock exchange. We're not going to give you a worse price. We'll probably give you a better price, a little bit better. And we'll even pay you if you send us your order. So Robinhood deals with those companies. They send them the order. Now you ask, why would you do that? Why would you provide a service that the stock exchange provides and provide it at a even slightly better price?
Why is that information valuable for this parallel exchange?
It's not that the information is valuable. It's that the stock market makes money too. The stock market, there always have been specialists who matched up buys and sells, and they make, over the years that they used to make a lot. They used to make like an eighth of a share, eighth of a dollar. Now they make, fractions of a penny, but they make money. And these guys make money too, and they have really good computers. And so they get a fraction of a penny per share that they keep. And then there's a fraction of a penny per share that they pay back to Robinhood or whoever else sends them an order. And that's how Robinhood makes money. Now, this is something, it's called payment for order flow. It's something that only really geeky guys talked about before the GameStop explosion. And now a lot of people talk about. And it's spoken about like this nefarious thing. And I think people are kind of barking up the wrong tree. The reason it's nefarious isn't that there's some kind of underhanded scheme, because the way it's done is pretty transparent. You can look up all the details of it. You don't get a worse price. The thing that bugs me about it is that it makes this whole thing possible in the sense that Robinhood's incentive is for you to trade as much as possible. The more you trade, the more they make. And is that really looking out for your best interest? Should you be trading a lot? Well, no, because study after study shows that the more often you check your account, the more often you trade as a retail investor, it's crystal clear, the worse you do. So it is to your detriment to trade all the time. Even though there's no commission, it's still costing you money. It's not free. And and people make mistakes when they trade, and very active traders make more mistakes than people who are kind of passive. And, and so there are people who trade like 10 or 11,000 times a year on Robinhood. And their typical customer checks it over 8 times a day, which is just totally unnecessary. So they're treating it like a video game, but it's their money that's going into it. And it's it kind of, I don't know where the line is between
Well,
gambling
it brings to
and
mind
investing.
that, you wonder if these Robinhood customers are customers or they're the product. And to that end, I want to read from your book again. If you had told an enterprising young investor half a century ago that in the future people would all carry around a device in their pockets with instant access to the sum of human knowledge, advice from a community of fellow traders, instantly updated news headlines and share prices, and the ability to buy and sell stocks, and even options for free with a few finger swipes, they would have salivated at the potential for profit. But instead of educating novices and allowing young people to build up capital, the loudest voices on social media and the slickest trading apps are helping Generation Z and millennials give their elders, victims of the dot-com bust and housing crash, stiff competition when it comes to stupid financial mistakes. Like them, they're also lining the pockets of already rich men in the process, just in a less apparent way. Actually speaking to these Robinhood investors and the ones that are, in the Wall Street Bets forum and covering it just in the past year and a half, I think that a lot of them are in it for the, FOMO YOLO rush, that it's exciting to actually see a self-fulfilling prophecy like the demise of AMC reversed. It's exciting for them to help the company raise money, even though it's a paper gain. The company can turn around and sell this stock and buy itself a new reality.
It is. I mean, on the other hand, executives of AMC, I mean, they weren't poor to begin with. They've walked away now with tens of millions of dollars of cash. They've sold their stock. The chief financial officer recently sold every single share he owns. The board sold a lot of shares. Big investors sold a lot of shares. So they're sort of the only game left in town. I mean, I don't know. The company now is viable, or much more viable, because they sold a whole bunch of stock to these retail investors at a very, very, very high price. I don't, it used to be that when people saw a company selling overvalued shares to mom and pop or to retail investors, period, that company kind of looked like the bad guy. And these executives are sort of, they're treated as heroes in this community of quote unquote of apes, which is what they call themselves from the Planet of the Apes films. And, it's kind of sad. I mean, I guess it's nice to be part of something, but
I will say, Spencer, I will say that, Adam Aron, I guess he is the CEO of AMC, who's kind of been playing this. He's been riding it. He's been engaging with that community that took his stock from $2 to $72. It's somewhere at the halfway point, and sold stock. He's like, should we, he's been putting out these trial balloons. Should we maybe start to sell our popcorn in stores? Or what do you guys want to see? Or what do you want to do? Or should we host events at this? It's kind of like an ersatz shareholder activism with kind of odd lot investors.
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, they're the investors. I mean, they're about 80% of the investors. The other 20% are index funds that kind of have to own the stock, right? So they don't have any choice in the matter. The AMC is in a stock index, and the index fund needs to own it. So really, almost all of the actual investors who have a choice whether to be there or not are retail investors, because the shares are kind of untouchable for, let's say, like a mutual fund that might buy stocks for your retirement. They're like, no, I'm not going to buy this. They used to own it, and they got out of these stocks because they're so much in the stratosphere. So, I mean, I guess it's kind of cool that he's taking ideas from the community, but it's kind of cynical because every chance that these executives get, they sell stock. There are all kinds of restrictions on when you can sell stock. You can't sell it all at once. The company can't, go out and sell as much stock as it wants. But it's taken every opportunity, and the board and the executives have taken every opportunity to sell stock. So they're kind of, and they're like, oh, I'm doing it for tax planning purposes. Oh, I'm 67 years old. I need to do that. And they're like, yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know. I see it as very cynical. And
I will say this, to your point, there was this piece in the Hollywood Reporter saying AMC Theaters' New Year's resolution: turn meme stock status into lower debt. Meanwhile, AMC directors and executives have sold about $90 million worth of stock since its rise in January 2021. The CEO himself tweeted in 2020 and early 21, "We took on debt at high interest rates to survive. If we can, in 2022, I'd like to refinance some of our debt to reduce our interest expense, push out some debt maturities by several years, and loosen covenants. So this is the swap you're seeing with the kind of the retail, the apes, if you will, the small investors,
Right.
helping the smart money and the wealthy money, the institutional money, cash out.
Right. And the pattern also repeats because you're saying like we're sticking it to Wall Street, right? You have these wealthy executives who, got through nothing that they did. They just were in the right place at the right time, had a windfall, not just at AMC, all these other companies too. The CEO of GameStop who left, not the current CEO, he was I think the fourth CEO in 5 years. He walked away with the kind of package that like people at much more successful, profitable companies would blush walking away with a package like that. It's just sheer luck that he was at this company that was kind of picked up by this group. But then even beyond that, not just the executives. I mean, Wall Street, here's a guy who's kind of seen as a villain by the community of apes, who's Kenneth Griffin, who's a hedge fund manager, and he also is the majority owner of Citadel Securities. That's the biggest processor of retail trades. And there are all kinds of conspiracy theories about him having manipulated the market, which are have no merit. But he is kind of seen as the kind of the Darth Vader or the Mephistopheles, behind this evil Wall Street establishment. Well, if you hate him so much, why are you paying him so much money? I mean, all this trading activity is great for his business. As a matter of fact, as we speak, I think just a few hours before our conversation, that company sold a minority stake in itself, valuing it at $22 billion.
And yet, I mean, in closing, Spencer, the community, the Reddit, Robinhood, kind of GameStop, YOLO, FOMO, hang on for dear life. What do they call it? Diamond fingers. I mean, you really need a glossary in your book to understand the millennial and Gen Z jargon. There's great honor in just holding on for dear life. These people that went from $2 to $10, that anything in Finance 101 would have told you to hold on, they were validated and vindicated by it going to $100, $200, and so many of them wear it as a badge of honor that I'm here for life.
They do and they don't, because if you look at the week that the events took place, it's like any religion or cult or whatever. I mean, and I don't want to call them a cult, but I mean, anything that people become devoted to. The people who arrive late are the most devoted, right? And so you had Wall Street Bets go from not quite 2 million people to 10 million people in the span of several weeks. You had all these people come and join and say, I'm never selling, I'm not selling. And I think that a lot of those late arrivals were much more sort of adamant about that, about it being a movement as opposed to being a way to make money. But if you look at the statistics, even during the week, even during the height of the GameStop squeeze, for most of that time, retail investors someone was selling their stock. Some of them were getting out while the getting was good. So it's not like they all did that. And the hedge funds that took these big hits, contrary to popular belief, they got out too. They got out with gigantic losses, but they got out pretty early in the game. And other hedge funds said, there's no way this can continue. And they kind of took over their positions. And then some of them, took it, on the chin too. But the narrative that they all held on is just not true. That's though what actually kind of got me, before the first article appeared about this, got me interested in it, was that I was home editing an article. My oldest boy came up to me and asked if I was going to write about GameStop, and a friend of his had bought the stock. I took a look at it and it's like, oh wow, it like doubled in a couple of days. Well, I don't think you should hang on much longer. It's up because Wall Street Bets is talking about it. I don't see any news. And he said, no, he's not going to sell. He won't sell. I'm like, what do you mean he won't sell? Like, that's sort of, then I started reading the message board and saw that they were trying to engineer a squeeze, which is just gobsmacked. I mean, it's one of the, I worked in finance for almost a decade. I've been a financial journalist for almost 2 decades. So over those 30 years, it's one of the most incredible things that I've ever encountered as someone who sort of knows a lot about finance.
When I was reading it, Spencer, I was thinking, from the mouths of babes. Here we are, you and I. I chiefly know you on Twitter and on your byline, but we're two old men with index funds kind of wagging our fingers at these whippersnappers, and here they are painting this new reality with GameStop and AMC. It was a pleasure having you on, sir. The name of the book is The Revolution That Wasn't GameStop, Reddit, and the Fleecing of Small Investors. Spencer Jakab of the Wall Street Journal, you are always welcome to come back on this show.
Thanks so much, Robin.
Full disclosure, stay with us. Full Disclosure Podcast to NPR One, Spotify, and of course, Apple Podcasts at link fulldradio.com. Please subscribe, rate us, recommend the show to friends and family, and follow along on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Full D Radio. If you're just joining us, we are discussing the supposed return and revenge of the long-lost individual investor, the mom-and-pop investor, the retail investor we were told was out of the markets for the better part of the past 20, 25 years. But my guest would like to counter that reaction. We're talking to the Mulligan brothers, Finley Mulligan and his twin brother, Quinn Mulligan. They were new to investing as of January 2021. They bought into GameStop during the January run-up, that infamous run-up, and they were furious when that buy button was taken away. But this sparked a thirst to kind of understand more about how the market worked and how to uncover this for John Q. Investor. How are you brothers doing?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Great, thank you.
I'm all right. And you're joining us from Oregon, correct?
Yeah, beautiful, rainy Portland, Oregon.
Start me off, Jump Ball. You guys, admittedly, when you wrote me, you said you were new to investing. I don't understand how something like this drew you guys in. Did you have just some extra money? Were you bored? Fear of missing out? How did this work? Take me back to January of 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I was following Wall Street Bets mostly for the comedy of that sub. If you've ever been on there, it's an insane place, and everyone should check it out at least once. And initially, we saw what was happening with DFV or Keith Gill, Roaring Kitty, and the GameStop play, not knowing his bull case for the company, but hearing about this supposed mother of all short squeezes. So we bought in at that time, like so many others, and lo and behold, the play was correct, and the squeeze was on until that buy button got taken away. But our initial jump into this whole experience was that early January craze of people buying in.
Do you have memories of GameStop? I mean, was this meaningful to you? Did you kind of want to defend the honor of GameStop from these vicious short sellers?
Yeah, I mean, we've been going to GameStop since we were like young kids. And there's, so many memories of getting some of our first video games there. And even up through the pandemic, I was going in there to swap games out. I think a lot of like folks that didn't have enough money to buy new, fresh games all the time went to GameStop a lot because you could swap old games. So that's kind of our experience with it growing up. And yeah, there's definitely the element of, man, these companies are trying to take down GameStop? Like, no way, man.
I mean, gaming is so huge within people of our generation, and it's only an industry that is growing so fast. So, there's a lot of room for companies like GameStop to go.
And just to illustrate for everybody, I'm looking back at the chart. For years, going back to 2017, you have a stock that's, scraping the bottom in the 20s, in the teens. It gets to the low single digits by 2019. I think it hits $3, what is it, $4, $2. And then the inflection point, January of 2021, it goes from $19, shoots all the way up to $325 in less than a month. And you guys are watching this and you have this mysterious Kaiser Sose type figure. What is it? What is his name? Kitty? Wall Street Bets? I know I sound like an old guy.
I mean, he's a YouTuber. It's everywhere. He's not mysterious at all. You can check out his channel, Roaring Kitty, Keith Gill. He's been very upfront.
Roaring Kitty tells you that this is going to be a short squeeze, the mother of all short squeezes.
He's a value investor. He's a deep value investor. He might be not traditional in how he went about what he did, but he had been saying for years that GameStop was undervalued. And if you look at his channel, he makes a pretty darn good case for it. Now, a lot of people who jumped in at the time didn't necessarily know that. The hype around the short squeeze wasn't from Keith Gill. It was from the community of Wall Street Bets. So I think we do have to separate those two things.
But how did you guys even know what a short squeeze was? Again, I'm not trying to be condescending. I'm trying to see the kind of the education of new investors.
Yeah, it's so you learn, right? So one thing that's been amazing about this whole experience over the course of the year is we've been going on places like Reddit. People make these posts, and some of them are very skilled and know what they're talking about, and others are not so much. But you weed through that, right? And the cream rises to the top. And by just going on forums, we learned what these things were, the mechanics of them, and enough at least to know that the play was good, or at least feel it was in our own minds. Like people are making their own decisions here and doing their own research. So we learned it from Reddit, and as the year has gone on, we've learned more and more. And as we decided to make a film on all of this, we've only gotten deeper and talked to experts and learned about what's going on in our markets. And it's been fascinating to watch these people teach each other.
Yeah, all through just the power of the internet and through these messaging boards on Reddit, upvoting to bring something that's valuable to the surface of the conversation, downvoting if it's not pertinent or if it's a waste of time, but also using like memes and just humor to disseminate some pretty intricate financial, tools. So it's been hilarious, it's been fun to watch, and it's been really instructive for a lot of people out there who have always felt that the markets weren't for them, or that it's only like, rich people that look a certain way that get to be involved in our markets. So it's been interesting seeing what massive diversity there is in this community too, who for the first time feel that they understand some of these inner workings of their markets and are willing to take part.
Do you mind if I use the millennial parlance? Did you have a stimmy burning a hole that you guys wanted to spend? I mean, where did the cash suddenly materialize at the beginning of 2021?
I think it's important to note that these quote apes or these retail investors, they're not a monolith, right? So they're not all millennials. It's a very wide range of ages, races, ethnicities. And we've been talking to these people for the better part of a year now. So I think it's a bit disingenuous to paint the picture that it's just a bunch of millennials going crazy over a stock. But for us specifically, and we don't speak for other people, it wasn't just stimulus checks. I had my own money I put into this, been interested in investing for a long time. And this was kind of a catalyst. I think so many people in the pandemic who normally don't have time to pull their nose out of the grind suddenly had time to step back, like people of better means do, and learn about markets and decide to step in for the first time. So I think we shouldn't ignore just how big and how varied this movement was amongst people that wanted to better their futures.
Yeah, we've spoken to, 50-year-old moms, 70-year-old dads. We've spoken to teenagers from Austria, from England, from Canada. There's people from all over the place, South Korea. It's crazy. We would basically put an ask out for people to send us a short video of their experience and why they got involved in the first place. And the diversity in that group of people is phenomenal and is interesting and fascinating to see how many people from all over the world and all walks of life in this country were interested in engaging in our markets and looking for a fair shake.
Well, tell me about that experience with GameStop. Do you remember what the investment, both of you together, and what the price was that you got in?
Yeah, I initially got in at $120, I think.
Seriously? Wait, $120 or $120?
$120.
Yeah, I got in much higher than that. I jumped in like at the top. I think it was like around 340 and then averaged down.
Well, here, look, like the thing about like jumping in so high is you got to remember, I jumped in at 120 or whatever it was. It's about that. When we were correct about the play of the short squeeze, that would have been profitable. And it still is, by the way. But even the people that bought in higher, like it was moving up. The play was correct. It got stopped. So I think, it's a bit hypocritical to...
Well, before we get into that mechanically, I just want to explain for our listeners that the stock went all the way up to $483 intraday. I mean, that is kind of unthinkable.
It's wild.
Its current market capitalization, after being kind of derided as a worthless company, it's worth $10 billion. So in addition to maybe the fringe benefit of sticking it to the short sellers that were trying to kind of accelerate the demise of a company that you guys fondly remember, was there potentially this idea also of you becoming actual owners of this company, that you helping determine its destiny as people who ran up the stock at a critical time? I mean, we've discussed this with AMC, for example, the way the CEO is back and forth with investors and engaging them on Twitter and seeing if they should open theaters for other events or sell their popcorn to supermarkets. Were you kind of romancing this idea as well with GameStop?
So after the buy button was taken away, a lot of people stayed, right? They didn't sell their stock. And as time has gone on, the value case for GameStop has become more and more apparent and popular. I mean, Ryan Cohen bought into this stock. Michael Burry was bought into this stock. And what Ryan Cohen, who, of course, great entrepreneur who founded Chewy, took on Amazon and won basically in the pet space and e-commerce, he has gone on to take this company and bring in people from Amazon, from Chewy, and where this company is going is not where it was, right? When you say dying brick and mortar, that was GameStop at one point. But right now, this is a completely different company with a different runway of where it's going to go. So yeah, we've become value investors in the company as time has gone on. And most people have bought more. They've gotten more and more convinced in the company itself. But that's not to say people aren't still in it for this squeeze. So it's a bit of both. But for us personally,
yeah. I mean, it's a really diverse group of people, and their motivations are just as diverse. Some people are in it just to make a ton of money. And some people, like ourselves, have turned towards a value investment, and some people started as a value investment.
Like Keith Gill.
Yeah, exactly.
Full disclosure, I'm Robin Farzad. You're listening to the Mulligan brothers, Finley Mulligan and his twin Quinn. They're both investors in GameStop. They both got involved with Wall Street Bets or Reddit. This entire community that we're talking about, Revenge of the Retail Investor, back in that fateful month of January 2021 when they bought into GameStop and the stock ran up enormously. I don't understand what the controversy was that Maxine Waters and everybody had to drag these executives in the fun. If retail investors are having fun, let them have fun. I mean, especially, why is there any sympathy for billionaire hedge fund investors getting torched? Or why did the buy button have to go away?
Is that a question? Yeah, I don't know, man.
That's a really good question.
I mean, you have to look at, I guess, for us, right, we're trying to dissect this question of, what are the motives? How did this happen? Why are we in this situation? And the thing is, we lack so much transparency in our markets that we can't look in Citadel's books. We can't, there's evidence kind of surrounding all of this stuff, but we can't prove any of it specifically. What we can do is look at FINRA actions. Robinhood had the highest FINRA fine of all time, for...
Robinhood had the highest FINRA fine of all time. For doing what?
So Robinhood, when they had their fine, it was about misleading communication about revenue sources and failing to satisfy best execution, which is their duty as a broker to us retail investors, right?
So this is amazing to me that you guys didn't take. You weren't steeped in Finance 101 or everything. You get the baptism. Again, it's not. I don't have to give you the disclaimer that it's not condescension, but it's not like your Series 7, Series 63 trained brokers or everything.
No.
But you're throwing out FINRA. You're starting out short squeeze. You're talking about Robinhood being brought before Congress and fined for lack of disclosure or disclosure. In the end, this is a question that I asked Spencer Jakab, and who wrote a book on this of the Wall Street Journal. Is, are you the customers of Robinhood, or are you a product that they're selling to someone?
In my mind, we are definitely the product. Their customers are the likes of Virtu and Citadel, who pay them exorbitant amounts of money for their order flow. So we have been retail. Has been kind of this wealth generation tool for the ultra wealthy in this country for quite a while. At every turn, they're finding a way to profit off of our shares and paying for our order flows.
Us as retail investors, right? Robinhood is incentivizing us to trade more and more often and at higher volumes. And you ask yourself why? Well, they're being paid for that order flow. They're not in the interest of making better investors that hold long-term stocks and don't trade often. Like, they want you trading constantly to get money in their coffers or to have more shares to lend out and make money off of your shares, meaning you can't have your dividend. You get a payment in lieu of your dividend, or you lose your rights in corporate governance. Like, there are so many layers to all of the ways that retail is being taken advantage of. And yeah, it's in their disclaimers probably when you sign up, but it's not adequate to really show the, quote, customer what the risk is and what they're doing.
Yeah, it's no surprise to me that Bernie Madoff's the one that made payment for order flow.
Citadel, there's a quote from Citadel in 2004. They said, "This practice distorts order routing decisions, is anti-competitive, and creates an obvious and substantial conflict of interest between broker-dealers and their customers." Here, in this instance, we agree with Citadel.
Maybe the one and only.
I got it. But is it a moot point? Is it a moot point at this point? Because the commission has gone away. You guys can just take your talents to what? Schwab, Ameritrade, E-Trade. They've all been consolidated in various respects. It's not the commission anymore. It's the fact that you got this education. You realize you don't want to be a product. You'd rather be a customer. There are other places that prioritize customer service or transparency more. Haven't you kind of grown out of the Robinhood mold?
Yeah, a lot of it, like, people are going to Fidelity, which internalizes in its own way. That's a whole different can of worms. But Fidelity didn't shut off the buy button, so that's one. But also, people are learning about direct registration. They're DRSing their shares in hopes of keeping it out of DTCC. Like, these apes, quote, like, are learning so much, and to underestimate these people, these like everyday people and retail investors, is a dangerous thing to do.
I also think that to say that because someone's getting commission-free trade, that it's okay that their broker just completely disregards their responsibility to get best execution is crazy to me. There are regulations around this for a reason. You're supposed to protect these people because a lot of them aren't, experts in the financial world and don't even realize the ways that they're being screwed over. So it's kind of like pulling the wool over someone's eyes when they're already blind and then stealing their wallet. It doesn't make any sense to me.
And this has gone from this squeeze and this retail frenzy in hedge funds. It's moved beyond that, right? And I think it's irresponsible for the media to keep characterizing this story as a fight between these like misguided millennials and the hedge funds. This is a story about ultra wealthy organizations siphoning wealth from the real economy, and this is at a detriment to our free market and capitalism as a whole. Earned internalization and consolidation and fragmentation in our markets is making for a worse playing field for everyone that has a pension fund, everyone that has a 401k. The more trading that we do off of lit exchanges, the less competitive our markets are, and the worse off the normal people who actually live in this world are.
Is it fair to call you shareholder activists at this point? If you don't want me to bring up the whole millennial tropes and avocado toast and everything, I won't go that
We're from
route.
Portland, man. We got a lot of avocado toast.
It's really good.
But no, what kind of bucket would you put yourselves in at this point? You can go on and hold your own on CNBC and talk about blind exchanges and not getting, being able to list your shares. You're talking in fairly esoteric, sophisticated institutional jargon, right? To say that you cannot list your shares with a broker.
And hundreds of thousands of people are. It's crazy. So to your point earlier of us, not wanting to condescend to us and saying, a year ago you didn't know squat about any of this.
I didn't mean it that way. I'm
it's
just
fair.
really trying to construct it. Look, after all, you guys are called. This community calls itself apes. You guys are the apes together.
We're definitely
strong
self-deprecating, and what the point that I'm trying to make is that it's a whole bunch of people that have been self-educating and all this stuff, but it's not like so we're not strangers to being screwed over. Like my city, Portland, housing, the cost of housing, I can't buy a house in my own hometown. And there are people all over this country that are in the same position. Food prices going up, gas prices going up. This wealth disparity between the ultra wealthy and the middle and lower classes is growing every day. So when I think a lot of people saw this buy button got taken away, they said, hey, that is one single point of focus where I can direct my anger. It certainly felt that way for me. It's like, hey, quit robbing me.
That's. But hold up. When you guys say the buy button was taken away, this unlikely development, you were so putting the screws to the short sellers by running up GameStop and others that they could theoretically lose an unlimited amount of money. They were putting out capital calls. They were getting help. These Goliaths that suddenly Robinhood took the buy button away and you guys cried foul. You're saying it shouldn't work that way. It shouldn't work that you could just short a company and that it's got to be a two-way road.
Yeah. That's it. We were winning and they changed the rules, right? You go to position close only when it's not convenient for Robinhood. If they were truly responsible, they should have seen this coming and been prepared to support the people who they thought of as, or who thought they were their customers, right? And they just weren't. And many other firms weren't. It's not just Robinhood, so.
Or perhaps the mechanisms that allowed the short interest to get so high shouldn't have been there. Perhaps there should have been better regulation. So to blame it on a bunch of people that saw an opportunity in the financial markets and maybe a good chunk of them gambled on it, then to turn around and say, it's fine for, multi-billion-dollar companies to gamble every day with your 401k. How's that?
That's what drives me crazy, right? Like a great thing Dave Lauer said to us when we interviewed him, who's an amazing guy. He said, gains are privatized, losses are socialized. And we're living in a world right now where these high frequency speculators, they're not trading on fundamentals. They're trading on technicalities, right? They're trading on structural inefficiencies in our markets to make abstract wealth gains, while we're told we have to play by fundamentals. It's hypocritical, it's wrong, and we just want the chance to play by the same rules as everybody else. And when we find a win like that, they should get out of the way, let it happen, and give us a free market, which obviously we don't have right now. in the near future, I think we will see regulation regarding payment for order flow. I think we will see SEC rules come out about share lending and transparency and short selling and so on. But what I hope more broadly, what we can do is look at the questions of what are we willing to gamble in our markets in the pursuit of like liquidity above all. How leveraged are we willing for our markets to become and at what cost, right? So I hope that this story comes off of our corner of the internet and everyone out there listening realizes that the practices of these wholesalers, internalizers, and brokers that are supposed to be working for us, that all of this affects anyone who has a pension fund and a 401k or who wants a free market. Any politician who wants a free market that is for some of these things is disingenuous, and you better look at who is paying for them. Because Ken Griffin put $60 million toward Congress, and you can guarantee that money's there for a reason, right? And not to call out one person in particular, but money is involved with all of this. And unless we separate that and everyone starts digging in, we're never going to have a changed system. But there are people doing a great job at trying to forward these things, like Better Markets, Dave Lauer, Gary Gensler. We actually appreciate and think he'll be doing some great things. So we're excited for the next year.
Thank you so much. The Mulligan brothers joining us from Portland, investing advocates. What did I say? Shareholder advocates, documentary makers, musicians. The link is apestogethstrongdoc.com. And in closing, just a favor of you guys, if you could somehow bring back Kenny Rogers Roasters, I know it predates you, but I kind of miss that.
No, I remember that from when I was young.
It started in Seinfeld. Maybe you can recapitalize it and start YOLOing it and FOMOing it. I miss that chicken.
There are certain companies I'm not sure we should bring back from the dead. And a Kenny Rogers themed restaurant's probably up there on that list.
Know when to fold them, man.
Come back on the show anytime.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, man.
Thanks. Full disclosure, special thanks this week to Claire Morgan at Notterly, this show podcast to NPR One, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts at link fulldradio.com. Please subscribe, rate us, join us, YOLO, FOMO, whatever you'd like to do. Special thanks to our radio partners. We have WERA in Arlington, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. We are across Virginia on Radio IQ, Virginia Public Radio. You can hear us down in Asheville and Ventura, California. Holler if you too would like us on your air. I'm Robin Farzad. Thank you so much for listening, and back with you next week.